Spirit.
Hey guys, and welcome back to the Ace Advice podcast. I have Coach Marissa here. I'm Coach Cece. Welcome back to our podcast. Marissa, how you doing?
Here we are. I am good. I'm ready to get playing again.
Yeah.
We had a weird break.
Totally.
My 15s haven't played since MLK. Are you in the same boat? Or no, you had one in
We
between.
had one the week after that, and then we've been off
Yeah.
for like 2 weeks.
Yeah. So my 11s have been off for 2 weeks, but my 15s have almost been off a month. So
Yeah.
they're itching to play. We've got new lineups to try since it's like a 3-day thing. Might as well. You know, I was rocking with a 6-2. I'm gonna try a 5-1.
Same. Literally same.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I feel like this is the point in season where we're all just still unsure of the lineup. Like we have an idea, but we still need to be a little more confident and try some things. And
Yeah.
I think parents get really frustrated that we don't have it figured out yet.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, we just met you like a couple months ago, you know?
Like I have players, like I have a player started as a setter, then I moved her to the right side, and now she's
Right.
on the outside.
Yeah. Poor thing. Because I have one of those too. We always have one. There's like a token kid where they're good enough to be playing. We just don't know where they should be.
Exactly.
Like, yeah, I have one of those who's like, are you a right side or an outside? Like
Yeah.
one of them. I just don't know which one.
Yeah. I
So,
also have 2 players that are out with knee injuries. So
oh man.
that kind of forces me to have to make some changes.
Yeah, are they
Limits
gonna
me in
be
my
able,
changes.
are they gonna be able to come back or are they kind of out?
They to be determined. One of them has been in like a full brace for 2 weeks. It's like a sprain in her MCL. So it's not like fully torn yet, but it's like it could tear if we're not careful. So
And you have 13s. That's so young to have like
Yeah.
knee injuries, I feel like.
yeah, it's not great. So it'll be 2 weeks this week. So she's out for this weekend, and then she has another doctor's appointment, so we'll just see where we're at. And then the other one, it's also just like overuse, which is crazy when you're 13. But that's just nature of the sport now. Everyone's starting, they're like 10 or 9.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, I have the 11-year-old, and a lot of them are 9. So
Yeah. So she's out for this week and this weekend. But just kind of a lot of them, nothing's like fully torn, which is great, but it's also harder because it's like, oh, you just have to rest, but it's also like how long? And
yeah,
you're never like fully recovered. So you just have to be like extra careful. So it's a little bit harder. Like obviously a full tear is the worst and it's like extremely hard, but sometimes it's a little bit better because you're like, all right, it's torn. All we can do is fix it
manage it,
and then recover. So yeah, I'm down from 11 players to 9 players. So
And then, is it a 3-day tournament?
It is a 3-day tournament, yes.
Okay.
So we are in the PM wave, which I loathe. So we don't start until 3, and we're off the first game, so we don't play until 4.
Oh my gosh.
So we're going to be there until like 9:30.
The worst schedule. You got so you're like the low seed, right? You're 4. That's that schedule. So we don't even have our schedules yet.
Oh, love that.
They're supposed to come out tonight. My 11s are the AM. My 15s are the PM. And I'm in Arizona, for those of you who don't know. So my 11s are in Mesa, and my 15s are in Glendale, which is a good hour away from each other. So
nice.
Yeah, but it's cool because we could be at the Cardinals Stadium. Like they've rented out that venue.
Yeah.
So that would be lots of fun. So we'll see. We'll see where we end up. I keep checking to like see if the schedule's been out because 15s it says to be determined. Like that's all it says. I know I'm PM, but like location to be determined. Not like they play in 48 hours.
Yeah, we have a bunch of teams playing this weekend, so I'll probably go up early and watch some like our older games. It's like 16s, 17s, 18s are AM, and then 12s, 13s, 14s are 15s are PM. So I'll probably go up early.
Yeah. Huh? I said we're flipped though. Like I would think you'd want the babies to be later.
Yeah, last year we were AM wave.
Yeah.
This same tournament, so I'm bitter.
Oh man.
Well, AM wave.
Oh, but my teams tend to play better in PM. So I personally don't like it, but they play better in PM. My teams are not morning people so far.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
That's
All right.
we haven't done very well in the AM, so maybe
No.
PMs are our thing.
Yeah. Teenagers, well, preteens for you, but still.
Yeah.
Okay, well, why don't we get into our topic? We are talking about the "You're so funny" TikTok trend. Do you want to
Yes.
define what that is for the people listening?
Yeah.
And,
So if you guys are on TikTok, especially on like the sports side of TikTok, because it's not just like limited to volleyball. I've seen it
right.
for all sports. I've seen it specifically for volleyball and softball has been like what I've been seeing.
Yep.
Basically it's this trend to I think it's a what song is that? Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. I can sing it, but
I can't, I'm blanking. It's not, I want to say it's One Direction, but I don't think it is. I think it's
no,
5 seconds of summer.
you're right. That's who it is.
Um,
Some boy
she
band.
looks so, she looks so good, or she looks so
Perfect.
perfect. There you go.
Yeah.
5 seconds of summer.
Yep.
Side note, obsessed with
Great
that.
song.
Obsessed with that band.
Great. Like, where did they go?
2014, like
Where
peak
did
high
they
school.
go? What
I don't
happened to
know.
them? You know?
Don't know.
But I'm
I,
glad they're back, even if
yeah,
it's for a sad trend. They're back.
exactly. But basically it's this trend where a lot of mostly like former I've seen it with I saw it start with mostly former college athletes.
Right.
And now it's kind of just all athletes, but basically it's athletes kind of talking about their mostly negative experiences with coaches or just the programs. And a lot of the things that I have seen have it's kind of a spectrum of like, okay, it's not like that bad to like this coach
Like,
should probably be
not be
arrested.
around children. Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's crazy.
Yeah.
The amount of exposing going on without really exposing anyone all at the same time.
Yeah, like some of them are like very, very questionable. Like
Abusive.
you said, like very abusive, should not be around children, like past the like normal coaches yelling at athletes,
Yeah.
past the like way past all of that. It's like
What is some of
borderline
the
like
worst that you've
racist,
seen?
sexist,
Yeah.
homophobic, like all of those things.
I think the worst one I've seen was somebody said their coach made them weigh in
Oh yeah.
before practices. Weigh in. Like, are we on The Biggest Loser? What? Why would we need to do that? Like,
Oh my gosh.
that's crazy. That was one of the crazier ones that I saw too. Like,
Yeah.
and of course I saw like some inappropriate conversations between coaches and players. I mean, it ranged. It was eye-opening, just like for me. Like, of course we know there's people that shouldn't be coaching out there that are and are skating by, but like the amount of what I saw was crazy and very eye-opening for me.
Yeah, for sure. Like a lot of them, and some of them, it's like very well known, like college programs, because it's like
Yeah.
former like athletes that maybe have graduated or athletes that have transferred. But you
Right. And
can
it's like
like,
in their bio. So it's not
yeah,
hard.
you can like very, or like in the pictures, it's very clear on their jersey where they went.
Yeah.
So you can very clearly tell, like, maybe it's not that current coaching staff, and they usually like define that it's not the current coaching staff because that would not be great. But
Yeah.
still, you can kind of do your research, and I think a lot of people are really good at doing research on the internet and finding
Oh,
finding
so
things out about you.
good.
But yeah, we wanted to just kind of talk a little about it because I know I made my own post about it, not in the same way. And I know you made your own post about it from the
Mhm.
coach's perspective. And I also got a lot of questions like on my TikTok about like parents that are concerned for their like going through the recruiting process. Like, should I
Mm.
be alarmed about
Oh,
things
yeah.
going on? So
Honestly, I think this has become a tool for people, like
yeah,
to weed out bad programs. Like, honestly, if I was a parent in that situation right now, I would just search this trend
yeah,
and make sure none of the schools that were on my kids' list were talked about,
for
and if
sure.
they were, do some investigating. Like,
Yeah.
that's a good point.
And I think it's something to just like note, like for players that are thinking about playing college, parents that are helping their kids navigate through the recruiting process, like no matter where you go, college athletics is going to be hard, right? There's going to be a commitment, a time commitment, a physical commitment, a mental
Yeah.
commitment, and they're like you are going to have some struggles, right? That's nearly impossible to go through a college program without having some
It's
sort
not.
of
Yeah.
issue, right? It doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily mean you're going to have like the worst coach in the world. It doesn't mean you're going to have the worst experience in the world, but you're going to have some struggles.
Yeah. For
That
sure.
being said, there's a difference between, struggling a little bit and being like verbally,
Yeah.
mentally
In an
abused by
abusive
your coach.
situation. For
So,
sure. 100%.
yeah,
But
so you
then,
definitely have to do your research and like
yeah.
do like a deep research and players make sure you are like visiting these campuses before you commit. Make sure you're talking to current players and former players and getting like the true side of everything because I know like I went on a lot of college visits when I was going through the recruiting process and I all great schools, right? But coaches are putting their best foot forward.
Oh, yeah.
Recruits are coming to campus, so they're not
100%.
always
And the
showing.
cafeterias are. I mean, they
Oh
have
my
the
gosh.
best meals out when it's recruiting, like a recruit visit day.
Yep.
Suddenly, our cafeteria turned into like a five-star restaurant.
Five-star
It's like,
restaurant.
so quick question. Like, why can't we
Where'd all the good food go?
right? Yeah. No, that's such a good point. And they'll say whatever, if they really want you, they're going to tell you whatever you want to hear,
Yeah.
whatever you want. I mean, again, I have a different perspective just because I am a parent, but I'm going to make my kids I'm going to research people who left and find out why, like
Yeah.
it's the next 4 years of your life and it's potentially your last time playing this sport and you want to make sure it's as good as it can be. But like you said, it can't be perfect. It's not
No.
possible for you to go through 4 years without that. So why don't you talk about your TikTok if you kind of like want to read? And again, for those of you listening, this trend is basically like pictures. It's not like a video, and you
Yeah.
swipe through pictures and they say different things. It'll say you're so funny and then date said trauma, basically.
Yeah.
So why don't you say yours? Because again, yours wasn't really about a coach. Yours was just about being a player and kind of how volleyball impacted you, right?
Yeah. So if you guys like go to my page and like scroll down, it's like all of my videos are labeled, so it's labeled "You're so funny." Um, and so yeah, I I laugh about it now because like laughing is like, coping from the trauma. But and I made like a follow-up video on it as well to like dive a little bit deeper into it. So I just definitely want to give like, you know, trigger warning just for anybody that may have dealt with disordered eating, disordered exercise, things like that, because that is mostly what mine was about. I definitely kind of dove into some of the bad coaches that I had, but most of mine were about me and my own struggles. So, my first one was, and I'll just read it because I think it's funny. It's not funny, but it's funny. My first photo was, "You're so funny." I said, "Thanks. I'd wake up at 6 a.m. the day after a game and run treadmill sprints for an hour if I didn't play or had a bad game." And I did. I definitely did that through high school and through college. And again, that it wasn't from like oh, I want to be a better athlete perspective. It was from, I need to punish myself because I didn't play or because I didn't play up to my standard.
Oh,
And
there's a lot there.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I did I went to therapy, guys. I've I've talked about this. I've talked through it. But for me, like when I started playing volleyball in middle school, right? And didn't stop after that and was basically playing year round. And at a certain point, it became like my entire identity. Like I
Mm-hmm.
was known as the volleyball player, right? I was Celeste the volleyball player. And that was all that, to me, that was all that I was known for. And so whenever I didn't play or whenever I felt like I didn't play my best, it was, oh, I'm not just like, oh, I'm a bad player. It's, oh, I'm a bad person because I
Oh
didn't
man.
perform
Yeah.
to the highest, to what the perfection that I wanted to perform at. And that kind of ties into some of the other ones that I had, which was, oh, I just lost it. Um, I wouldn't let myself eat after I played a bad game. And again, wasn't from it was purely out of like punishing myself,
From
right?
you.
Because I didn't like in my brain, and it was a very skewed perspective. I know that. But basically it was like I didn't play well, so I don't deserve to eat, right? And that was kind of my mindset. And I had struggled with disordered eating like through high school, um, going into college. So there was kind of already that seed implanted into my brain. So then it was just kind of heightened going into this like higher level of play. And again, it was coming from a place of I need to punish myself because I didn't perform perfectly, right? I didn't have a perfect game. And spoiler alert, there's no such thing as a perfect game, right? No one, I mean, you could maybe have a perfect game, but it's very, 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 very rare, right? Even if you don't necessarily make any mistakes, right? That doesn't even mean it was a perfect game, right? For you, right?
No.
Somewhere along the
Volleyball,
line,
literally a
you
game
probably
of
made a
mistakes.
mistake.
Yeah.
Exactly. Um, so those were the two that were mainly about kind of my own personal struggles through volleyball. And again, it was coming from a place of volleyball was my entire identity, right? And it's defined who I was to a fault, right? And like very, very in a very unhealthy way, right? I love volleyball and I still love volleyball, but now and through my journey and through therapy, I was able to separate who I was from what I did.
Yep.
And like
That's
as
good.
like I'm somebody that when I do something, like I'm gonna give 110% into it,
Hmm.
which can be a good thing, but can also be a bad thing, right? Because again, my entire identity was revolved around this one singular thing. And that really came to light when I got injured, right? Because I wasn't able to do the one thing that I was known for doing. And
Yeah.
so it was during that time that I started going to therapy, one for the injury and two to help with all of this, um, to kind of get to the root issue of why I was thinking this way. And that's what it was. It was because I was tying my entire identity to this one singular thing, right? And when that one singular thing was taken away from me, it was like my entire world was taken away from me.
God.
So if anybody is struggling with those types of thoughts, that type of mindset, I would highly recommend going to a professional, a sports psychologist, or any type of therapist to kind of work through those struggles because, like I said, who you are is not defined by what you do. And if you let what you do define who you are, it can be a very, very slippery slope when things end up not going your way. Inevitably, things are not going to always go your way. And so we have
And
to figure out how to separate the two things.
yeah. And it eventually comes to an end, right? Like everybody's
Yes.
career eventually ends. And so you have to be able to make that distinction between who you are and what you do.
Yeah.
And I felt myself, I can relate 100% to everything you said, unfortunately. And I think when it really hit me was when my career ended because
Yeah.
it had been a part of me for so long that like I just remember like the last play like of my entire career being like okay, there's nothing next. Like, and
Yeah.
that gave me an incredible amount of anxiety. The car ride home, I was literally sick to my stomach because it was over. And like, I actually had anxiety about the future, like, because I struggled with the same thing. I didn't know who I was apart from this thing. Like, and mine was so deeply rooted because my parents were both coaches and I had been around it since I was a little kid. Like,
Yeah.
so it was tough for me. I felt like I really had no value outside of the game when it ended. And yeah, and I was transitioning not into adulthood, like trying to find a 9 to 5 corporate America job when all I really cared about was volleyball.
Right.
And so that was a big shock to me, and I totally can relate um to everything that you said, unfortunately. So yeah.
Yeah. And like now on the coaching side of things, I'm like very adamant about my athletes having
Mhm.
things outside of volleyball, right? Especially because we both coach in a world where
Mhm.
it's year round, right? We have school and then we have
It's
club
like
and then
way
we have summer.
worse
We have school,
now
club,
than when
summer.
we were playing. I
Yeah.
feel like the seasons are longer and kids are burning out early because it's so long. And yeah, of course it's hard to find your identity outside of this when it takes up 12 months of the year, literally.
Exactly. Yeah. So like our regular club season ends in like April, at end of April. And then like at our club, we start summer stuff like end of May, like beginning of June. And like I have a lot of athletes coming up to me like, what should I do during the month of May when we're off? I'm like, literally do nothing related to volleyball. Like take the time and do something else, right?
Yeah.
Because you're gonna have a summer full of volleyball, and then you're gonna go right into school season. Then you're
Cool.
gonna go right into club season, right? So this month, right, these 4 weeks, go and do anything else, right?
Yeah.
Because
No,
you
that's good
need that
advice.
time to mentally, physically recover and just take a break, right? Because
Yeah.
it's gonna be there. It's always gonna be there. It's not going anywhere. So just let
Yeah.
yourself do other things. Let yourself be a kid and just
Totally.
enjoy your summer before you're doing all of the volleyball things, all of the camps, all the clinics, all the open gyms, all the tryouts, right? Let yourself have that time to do something else,
Hmm.
which is
Yeah.
huge.
100%. That is such an important piece of advice because yeah, they become obsessed. The private lessons, the
Yeah,
everything. They fill their time even when they don't have to. Like,
exactly.
and you do to remain competitive. You kind of do have to do that. Like, unfortunately,
Yeah, you definitely
uh,
do. But there's a
and
there's a
there's a line.
line.
There's a line for
Yeah,
sure of too much is too much.
absolutely.
So
Um,
I never really experienced I didn't experience everything that you experienced, but to a point, like I could have made a TikTok just like this. So I'm really
yeah,
glad that you made it just on behalf of all of the athletes currently playing or not. But kind of back to the trend, some of these people are currently still playing and making it about their coaches.
yeah,
That's a bold move. And we were talking before this about, yeah, we probably would have made this about our one bad coaching experience when our frontal lobes weren't fully developed and it seemed way bigger than it was. Um, do you have any insight to like if you would have made this when you were, let's say, 14, 15, what do you think it would have looked like?
yeah. Well, one of the ones I did post was about like the first coach I had, and I said like the first coach I ever had told me I was a waste of height at 14 and that I would
Oh
never
my
amount to
God.
anything in this sport. Keep in mind, I would
Isn't it wild
I was
that
13
nasty?
at
Oh
that
my
time.
gosh.
13. I was 5'7" at 13. So like I was tall, but I wasn't the most athletic yet because I was still kind of getting into volleyball. And she literally told me I was a waste of height and would not do anything in this sport. And 12
I
years later, I was playing Division 1 volleyball. So
You said her. But also, okay, so like I'm a coach right now, so are you. I even to the kid that annoys me to the ends of the earth, would I never say
yeah,
something like that to? You
yeah,
know? Like even the ones that are like really hard to coach, that would never fly out of my mouth.
yeah,
Like that wouldn't even cross my mind to tell somebody that they're a waste. Like it's amazing the people who are allowed to be around children. Like amazing to me.
yeah.
So
So that was like the first one. And then I made another one, or like had another photo that it wasn't necessarily a coach. It was more, well, it was a coach combined with like our athletic trainer at the time. This was in high school.
mm,
And it was when I had to play through a partially torn labrum in my shoulder because they said it was not that bad, even though I was in pain every single day. And my coach made me play through it
that's
and
like
made it worse.
I torn my labrum and you really can't lift your arm. So I'm not sure how you did that. That's
Yeah, it was I
crazy.
did it with extreme pain
Did you
every
tip
single time.
everything? Like, did you literally tip everything?
No, I swung,
My gosh.
but it hurt. I don't know, I think I was overdosing on Tylenol and Advil
Oh, yeah.
and roll on lidocaine.
Oh my gosh. That is crazy.
Um,
I'm
so
trying to
yeah,
think of what mine would say. Ran me till I puked. But honestly, like
yeah,
that's like a normal, unfortunately normal experience that I don't think a lot of today's kids could tolerate, but that was super
that
normal.
was
And
very
again,
normal. Yeah,
it's different generations, but at the
yeah,
time I thought he was like the absolute worst for it when
yeah,
really that's just the way it went. That was just conditioning, and I wasn't the most in shape kid at the time,
Yeah. I think that's something like to note is just like there we are in a different generation of youth athletes.
Totally
Like the
different.
coaches we had when we were 14, right?
Would not have, yeah,
They taught or they coached how they were coached when they were 14, right? Which was back in the day,
different
but
for sure.
it
Probably
was
way
different,
different than
right?
us. And,
So it was normal for that
that's a
level of
good point.
conditioning.
And what's crazy, I wanted to kind of get into like the best and worst coaches that we've had.
Yeah.
One of the best coaches that I've had actually got terminated recently because like this generation like couldn't handle and he wasn't willing to change, like
Yeah.
and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a different time. And I've noticed even maybe you're in the same boat. Like I've had to kind of approach everything differently from when I even started coaching,
Hmm.
just because it is different. Like
Yeah.
I don't know what it's like to live in a social media world where like we post our highlights after game. Like we weren't doing that. Like,
Yeah.
you know? And
We didn't have
so
I mean, did we have when did Instagram come out? 20?
my junior year of high school, but like it was a different Instagram.
Yeah.
So 2011-ish.
Yeah.
And it was just different. Like it was just pictures. Like it was,
2010. Goodness.
yeah, that's what I thought around then. I was a junior, sophomore, one of those.
Yeah. I was
And
a
yeah,
freshman.
yeah, you're younger than me.
It's crazy.
Um, yeah, I don't know what it's like, and I've kind of like accepted that I don't know what it's like to be them, and I'm still open to like being a student of coaching, like because I'm navigating through that every, like I can't coach these kids the way I was coached. I just
Yeah.
can't. Like there's elements that I absolutely adopt and take from the coaches that I had when I was young, but it's not the same. It's just
No.
not.
Yeah. Like personally for me, like as somebody that did like have those mental health struggles, that's a very, very big like pillar of my coaching is like making sure my players are just okay, right? Because
Yeah.
especially like student athlete mental health is just so overlooked and under like addressed. And like you said, just living in this social media world just heightens that.
Oh yeah.
So like
Because
we
you're
have
living up to
check-ins
something
every
else.
single day. Like
Uh-huh.
before practice, we have like a check-in every single day. They like rate where their energy levels are at on a like scale of 0 to 100, like where they're at mentally. Just like I know like what like who I'm getting that practice and how I
Yeah.
can kind of shift that practice to just meet them where they're at, which I think was definitely not something my coach has ever had. It's like, hey, you either do it or get out. Was
Yeah, you
their
check it
kind
at
of
the door or
yeah. Yeah,
Mhm.
leave your problems at the door was what I've been told a million times as a player. But like it's hard. It's you can't always do that, right? Sometimes like volleyball for me, like we already talked about, it was like my entire identity. So like it was like where I went and what I did when I didn't want to think about my outside problems. But
Mhm.
some people aren't like that, right? Sometimes like athletes, their outside problems are bigger than volleyball, right? There's a thousand things in the world that are bigger than volleyball, right? And sometimes that takes priority. And sometimes you have to address that aspect before we can even learn or coach anything.
And our role as coaches is really important. Like I never thought about it till it happened to me, but like it's really important when they're going through hard things that this is a safe space. Like earlier this year in December, one of my 15's mother passed from cancer. And
Mm.
for me, my role became that much more important to make sure she had the best experience possible, to not add to anything she had going on. Because, like, to be 15 without a mom, I just, like, could not imagine.
Yeah.
And, my goal was to be a safe space for her, but still not change who I was as a coach and finding that balance. We're not perfect. And I
No.
do want to give that perspective as a coach. Like, we don't know what's going on unless you tell us. And it is our job to create a safe environment for our players and an open line of communication for those types of events. And I'm blessed enough that she felt safe and her family felt safe telling me she was going through that. And yeah, I am going to coach her a little differently than everyone else. Just I mean, that's a pretty extreme circumstance, but
Right.
we our role becomes really important because we just don't want to add to anything else. Like life is hard enough.
Yeah.
It really is, and I try to remember that when I'm, frustrated with them and when they're not acting a certain way that I would like them to act. It's like they're still figuring this out. There's so much going on in the world. So,
Yeah. And that's definitely something we can talk about in a little bit, just like dealing like you said, as coaches, we don't know what we don't know, right?
we have no
We're
idea.
not mind readers, right? So a lot of times when conflicts arise between players and coaches, 90% of the time it's a miscommunication, right?
Yeah.
Again, because I like every player experiences everything differently, right? The way like we say certain things, the way we
Yeah.
do certain things, right? To them, it is like it's taken in one specific way, right? That may not be like how we intended it to be, right? That was 100% not our intention for them to
Yeah.
feel that way or take it that way, but that is how they felt, and that is 100% valid how they felt it, even if it was
Hmm.
not the way that we intended it to be. So
Yeah.
that is when like open communication comes into play because it can lead to bigger conflicts, right? And I've been on both sides of that as a player, as a coach, right? When miscommunications come into play, it can lead to things you don't want to
Difficult.
happen. A lot of
Yeah.
those difficult conflicts that lead to bigger conflicts that could have been avoided if there was just more communication going on.
100%. Um, yeah, and I've been pretty lucky just in the playing perspective that I had great coaches.
Yeah.
I had great coaches. My mom was one of them. I had a lot of male coaches that were fantastic. I think the brunt of my issues with coaches were just trying to be politically correct. Like when I was a freshman, I was better than most of the seniors, and the seniors got playing time because they were seniors. So just like things that really felt big, but man, like now that I'm a coach, I've spent 4 years with some players. Like it'd be really hard to bench them for a freshman that I just met. Like, so I definitely see both sides of things a little bit more now, like you were saying. But
Yeah.
I'm lucky enough that I don't think I could have made a TikTok that really would have shaken the roof off anything.
No, like my coaches, they yelled,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes they yelled very aggressively. I did have one coach that got ejected from a game because he threw his clipboard at the ref.
Oh, at the ref?
Yeah.
At the ref is crazy. I thought you meant just throwing a clipboard. I go,
No,
but
I don't think
at
he
a
meant.
ref,
I think it was just kind of like a.
it just slipped.
I think so, or it was just like an impulse thing. Like he just got so mad, he just threw it and it
That's
hit the ref.
freaking funny.
So he got ejected. Um, so that happened, but
At the
um,
ref is crazy.
yeah. Other than that, like, yeah, I had coaches that yelled, but like coaches yell. I
Yeah,
had
no.
trainers that ran us till we puked, but again, that was relatively.
Time.
Is it okay? Not necessarily, right? Is it normal? Kind of, right? I don't want to say like, oh, it's normal and okay to like push yourself to the
I
puke,
mean, every
but
once in
like,
a while, like I feel like it's kind of good for you. Like
yeah,
maybe I'm just a little messed up in that. But I do feel like at least one time everybody's got to experience what their limit actually is.
yes,
And
yes, yeah, I
uh,
do agree. Like, you have to find like sometimes you have to like go past your limit to figure
I
out
know
what
what
your
it is.
limit
Yeah.
is, and
Yeah, and
you
what you need
don't
to
get
work up
better.
to. Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
So yeah, I had
So
those types of coaches. We had
yeah.
5 a.m. conditioning in college.
Yeah. So did
That
I. In the
was
snow. Oh
well,
my gosh. In the
yep.
snow. Ugh. It was like hard to
But
breathe. Yeah.
yeah, but I never had coaches that I never had coaches that denied us food after a game. I saw those types of TikToks.
I had that.
Oh,
I
that's
had
not
that.
good.
So it was in college also.
Oh
It was
no.
my freshman year. We were driving home a game that we should not have lost. It was like an 8-hour drive, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and one of the seniors went up to her and was like, "Hey, coach, like, are we gonna stop for dinner?" And she goes, "There's apples in the back."
Oh,
And then this girl goes, "Okay, but there's only 8 of them." and there was like 16 of us. And she goes, well, share them.
Oh,
And that was the end of the discussion. She so but I can relate, not to starving the children, right? But
yeah.
to being so mad at the team that it's like, I just want to get home. Screw
Yeah.
you guys, But yeah, she probably shouldn't have starved us. That was not the move.
No.
There is a budget in college to feed us.
Yeah.
But like looking back, it's kind of fun. Like it's
There's
kind of
apples in the bag. Like, oh,
fun.
okay.
Share them. She said share them.
It's
Like
crazy.
what? We were just gonna ask the apples back to
Yeah.
discuss.
So it's like my college coach is like the exact opposite. Like she like during preseason, like she made us food like at home and
Oh,
would bring it.
that's cute.
Like she would make like homemade meatballs and spaghetti. Cause like she was a mother of
Okay,
three and there were
that's a big deal though to
yeah.
have like home cooked stuff in
Oh
college.
my
Like
gosh,
that's
yeah.
cool.
Like
That's
and she would
everything.
yeah, there if there was one thing that we were, it was fed. We were
Fed.
always fed.
Good. Well, I also
Yeah.
made a You're So Funny
Yeah,
TikTok. I'm not sure if you had the chance to see mine,
I did. I
but
did. And I
from the
related to all of them.
that's so unfortunate. And all the comments I got were like,
Oh,
"Oh my
they were
gosh, thank you so
crazy.
much." Yeah,
Like, way to be insensitive. I'm like,
yeah. It
there's
was
two sides. Hello.
it was yeah. Everybody, and again, I could see like I made one from the coaching perspective just to kind of say like some of these that I saw don't deserve TikTok. Like they don't
Yeah.
deserve this kind of scrutiny, but some do.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to shed light on like how hard it is to be a coach, how much pressure you have with making $2 an hour. um, but basically, my first one was, "You're so funny. Thanks. I've been verbally attacked by parents for the last 4 years just trying to pour into their daughters." And it's not every single day that I'm
No.
attacked, right? But
It's not every single parent.
it's not every single parent either. Yeah, but it's often enough that I made a TikTok about it.
Yeah.
It's often enough that it's still like I get anxiety after games, whether we win or lose. I've been attacked after wins and
Yep.
loss, believe
Yep.
it or not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I believe it. I
And
have to.
yeah, it got to the point last year where I didn't feel like I could even stay after the games. I would just, high five the girls, do our huddle, and then I would make like a beeline for the exit, like I had been set on fire. And unfortunately, like it's really hard to enjoy what you're doing when you feel like you can't stay in a safe environment. So
Yeah.
that's kind of why I made that one.
Yeah.
My next one was, "You're so funny. Thanks. I become public enemy #1 when people don't get playing time."
Yeah.
And
Uh,
it's like they
we love
forget.
playing time.
It's like they forget though that there's literally only 6 spots on the floor, and there's 12 to 13 of you. Like uh, as much as I love each and every one of you, not possible.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's literally not possible.
No.
So
And I've made a lot of TikToks like about at least like how I like determine playing time and just like general things that coaches think about when talking about playing time. And again, that can be a whole other podcast. But
yeah,
I think people like parents and players, like as a player, like when I was like not getting playing time, like yeah, I was frustrated with my coach. But now that I am a coach, I realize all of the things that go into it. And there's a
yeah.
lot more than just there's so much that goes into it, right? It's
There's
not just
strategy. There's
yeah. Like even if you are
chemistry.
yeah, like you can be the best passer on your team, but if you don't pass well next to the two people that you're passing next to, you're not going to go in, right? Because then there's
Oh,
going to be 1,000 drop balls that shouldn't be dropping, just no communication, right? You can be the best hitter on your team, right?
but
But
if you're not connecting with the center, what are we
no.
gonna do? Like,
Or if you don't talk, right? If you're just not talking on the court, you're not going to be contributing. Or if you're an energy drainer, right? You can be the best player, but if you break down when you make one mistake, right?
yeah,
And that seeps into everybody else on the court, there
yep,
can be, that's not going to work, right? Or even the opposite, right?
100%.
Maybe you're not the best blocker, the best hitter, but you bring that energy that
Yeah,
brings everybody up. I want you
yeah,
on the court.
yeah, exactly. And uh, I struggle so much. I mean, I moved up with a team, a 14s team. Now we're 15 and we got 4 new people. So like, it's not the same lineup as last year. And
Yeah.
it's rubbing people the wrong way, but it's like, I want to win. So like, I'm going to put people on the floor that are doing it for me, not just who's had the longest relationship with me. Like
Right.
that's not what this is.
And it changes. Like it changes
Oh
throughout
yeah.
the season. It changes
Ebb
depending
and
on
flow.
who we're playing, right? If we're playing against a team that has this bomb ass outside that's needs to be blocked, I'm gonna put my best right
We're
side
running a
blocker up against
6-2
her,
with, yep. Yeah,
right? And
exactly.
maybe that
And
means my quote starting right side isn't playing all the way around because I just
yeah.
need a strong block.
Or I'm not running a 5-1. I'm going to
Yeah,
run both setters because I need a block at all times. Like,
exactly. So there's just
so,
a lot that goes into that.
and people do not get it. And uh, it's just frustrating. So,
Yeah,
my next one was, you're so funny. Thanks. I never know if people actually like me or want playing time for their kid. Like,
that one made me laugh.
well, because they talk to you like you're God's gift to earth, like, at least in my experience. And it's like, do you have an agenda? Like, I hate to like assume that about people, but it's like, why are you talking to me?
No, because
I,
like you like for parents specifically, like I've had parents that have literally yelled at me to my face, and then the next day they're like buying me coffee, and I was like, "What is this whiplash?"
isn't it just, no, it's literally mental whiplash. Like, I have had the exact same. I had a parent come up and scream at me and then hug me the next day. And I was like, first of all, like, you don't look at me and think I'm gonna give this girl a hug. Like, I don't really give that. But like, I think it's just people follow up and panic because they realize they're wrong. Like, and I'm still working on my reactions when people come up and do that. Like, that's something I really need to work on because I'm a spitfire, in case you haven't noticed. So I really have to work on saying, putting the hand up and going, there's a 24-hour rule. Goodbye. Like, and I can't, like, I am a type 8 Enneagram. Not sure if you know what that is, but
Yeah,
I thrive in conflict. Like,
the exact opposite.
really, this is why we're together.
Hate conflicts
Oh
so
my
much.
gosh.
Like
Love a
I
debate.
want to cry.
Oh my gosh, I love a debate. I love to get into it with people, and my mission in life is to prove people wrong. Like, it's bad. Like, and I need to work on it. So when parents do that, I feel the need to explain my entire lineup and like why. And like, truly, I don't owe them an explanation.
Yeah,
It's, you know,
yeah. See, I'm the exact opposite because I like chronic people pleaser since I
yeah.
was a child, right? And that again, working on it, but I hate conflict, so I just let them say what they need to say, and then
I say, all right, good
figure it out
night.
later. And then I'm
Yeah,
like, all right, because a lot of the
have
time
a good
they're
one.
yelling at me about things that are not in my control, at least like from my experience. Like sometimes it's about playing time, sometimes it's things that I have zero control over. I'm like, why are you yelling at me? Like, I
Yeah.
can't change this.
But
Um,
but I do feel like this has changed from our generation to now. Maybe, maybe not for you. I don't know. You can speak to your own experience, but like, I never saw anybody yelling at any coach that I ever had. Like, I never saw
uh,
that. Like, the boldness that has happened, the level of entitlement, that people really think that they've watched like 10 volleyball games in their life and suddenly they're experts. Like, it's mind blowing because,
yeah, yeah,
again, I was raised in a house of coaches, but even like any teammate I've never saw anybody, unless they were really, really like sneaky about it.
yeah.
I never saw an altercation or any parent complaint. And
No, I don't.
the first time I
Yeah,
saw it was in college. Like,
yeah. Even then, I've never like, yeah, like, I've never seen it like with my own eyes. I'm sure it happened.
yeah,
I never,
like, I cannot recall. Yeah.
no, like, and
And I
that's how
don't
you
know
would
if that's,
you'd remember.
I don't know if that's because we were just so laser focused on like what we had going on, but I do think it's relatively like a new thing.
Yeah, I was like, I know my parents like would never.
Yeah, and
They
they
would
didn't even,
never.
you
They
said
would
that they
never.
didn't really know volleyball till you started playing. Like, it's
Yeah,
just common
they would.
sense. And I'm
They
not
would
really
never.
sure what happened to it. I'm not sure what happened to common sense,
I don't know.
but out the window.
Yeah,
Anyways. Um, you're so funny. Thanks. I had character defaming emails sent to my boss that made me question if I'm supposed to be doing this. I mean, people are bold behind a screen.
they are.
Like, like, I mean, just terrible, like adjectives that I would never use against my worst enemy, you know? Like, and sent right to the boss. Like, why could you not come and talk to me 24 hours later? Why did we, you would hate it if I did that to you at work. If I went straight to your boss and didn't ask you, like, to handle something, you know, like that's the stuff where it's like, we're still human beings, we're still employees. Why can't we follow an order? Why do we have to go straight to the top? Like, it's this like
Yep.
entitlement issue, you know?
Always straight to the athletic director.
Right. But
Always.
anyways, that was mine. I got a lot of backlash for taking this trend away from athletes, and that wasn't my intention. It was more to
Yeah.
just say there's two sides to every story, and coaches can participate in this trend, like, because we go through our own set of trauma every time we sign up for this, especially nowadays, you know?
Yeah. Like you said, we're not like, yes, players started this trend, and we're not trying to take anything away from that. We were both players, right? And we've both had
100%.
our "you're so funny" moments.
Yeah.
And I think whether it's small or big, right, when you're going through it, it all seems big.
Yep.
And I want to like validate what those players are feeling, because again, in those moments, it feels awful, right?
Feels
And
big.
maybe in 10 years when you're out of that situation, you'll look back on it and can maybe see the other side of it, right? Granted, some of these are, again, not okay in any
Crazy.
way, shape, or form. I want to say
Crazy.
that, like, way, way, way beyond that. But for some of the quote unquote smaller things, again, like I look back on certain situations when I was in high school with coaches, and like certain me not getting playing time or just things that they said. And in the moment, it felt like soul crushing. But now I look back on it and I'm like, all right, they were kind of they
Yeah.
were kind of valid in that decision.
Yeah. 100%.
But I think also like in your comment section, there were a ton of coaches agreeing with
Oh my
like a
gosh.
ton of
And that's,
coaches being like, yes, I agree. Yes, all of the above.
I felt seen, but also like, dang, it sucks that
Yeah.
everyone can relate, you
Yeah.
know?
But it's same with
It's,
players, right? A lot of
yeah.
players in there, like in those comment sections, are like, yeah, I relate. I've done the same thing. So, and I think like a lot of things can be common, right? But it doesn't have to mean that they're normal, right? Just
Yeah.
because it happens a lot doesn't mean that it should be normal. It shouldn't be
That part.
normal for you to be verbally abused by parents. It shouldn't be normal for players to be verbally abused by coaches, right? So I
Yeah.
think this trend brought a lot of that to light of how common it is,
Hmm.
but I think it's also helping us to shift how we do things so that it's not seen as normal. Because I think
Yeah.
that's when we get into trouble, is when it starts to be seen as, oh, this is just what happens in
And
sports.
it's like my worst fear as a coach to like end up as one of these trends. So
Oh yeah.
I'm hyper focused on giving my players a good but real experience. Like I don't want to sugarcoat anything. Like, you know, I want my players to leave me as strong people and like good teammates. Like I just want them to be good teammates. And when they're not being good teammates, I'm going to let them know. And it's not an attack on their character. It's just me trying to make them better people. Like it really is. Like I
Yeah.
take my job extremely seriously. And something as little like if you're not cheering when you're off of a drill and your other teammates are in a drill, like if you're not cheering, there's something wrong with that. Like, um, and I try to call out the little things that are going to make them better people in the end.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm tough about it, but I I really try to ride the line of they're still having a good experience, even though that I'm trying to make them better people. It's a
Yeah.
fine line we walk.
Yeah. And sometimes like you have those certain players that even though you're doing your best to do that, they still take it very personally, and they still take it as an attack, and they still will view you as this
Yeah,
enemy, right? And
yeah.
sometimes
No matter what.
they might quit, and I've seen that happen. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, it sucks, but again, a lot of the times it's we don't know what we don't know, right? So if we don't know that there is an issue, we can't solve it, right? Because I'm going to be the first one to be like, all right, there's an issue, let's solve it. But if I don't know what's going on, I can't just assume you're feeling this way if I don't.
Right. And if your mommy goes straight to my boss, what am I supposed to do then?
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's important to note, like, when those things happen, it's a win-lose for us. It's actually a lose-lose for us, because if you give you more playing time, then it's like everybody thinks they can go whine to the director. But if we don't, then we look like we're not listening to you. So when people do that, just know you're putting coaches in very conflicting situations about our next move, because it's gonna look bad no matter what. So at the end of the day, I'm just hoping that, you know, I can create an environment where people trust me to make the right decisions. It's not personal, but I mean, it's never going to be perfect, you know?
Yeah. And like, I preface that with my players at the beginning of the season. Like, I'm going to make the decisions that I think is going to be best for the team. And sometimes you may not personally agree with those decisions because they may not involve you being on the court. But just because you may not be on the court doesn't mean you don't still have a role on this team, and doesn't mean that
or that we don't
need
see
you at some point.
Right. We see you. Like,
so like, as for players, if you are like struggling with any sort of conflict with your coach, whether it's playing time or something else, right? At least for me as a coach, like, I always emphasize, like, I have an open door policy, right? So if you have questions about what your role is, why you're not playing, or why you're playing in the position that you are playing in, come and talk to me, because I will tell you everything that you need to be doing to get to where you want to be, right? I have the stats to back it up. I have the thought process to back it up. And again, I will sit down and talk with you for however long I need to get you to understand where I am coming from. But again, I emphasize that it has to come from the players, right? Even at 13s, I emphasize, like, I want my players to advocate for themselves. I don't want your parents coming up and talking to me.
No.
Right? If it gets to a point where it's like a bigger conversation where I think parents need to be involved, then I will invite them in. But for like that first initial conversation, I want them to start advocating for themselves, right? Because
100%.
These 13-year-olds, they're going to be in high school in 2 years, right? And I want them to be confident to have those. They're scary conversations when you're, you know, a child having to have these big conversations with an adult. So I want them to be comfortable having those conversations from an early point.
Yeah. And I think 13s and 12s is when they need to start. Like, I have 11s, and like, first of all, everybody plays.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't really have playing type issues on my 11s, but some do. We're ones team, so some do play more than others, but everybody plays, you know?
Yeah.
But I'm even trying to emphasize with the parents, like, to try to, at home, if there's an issue, practice role playing, you know, like, to come and feel brave enough to talk to me. Like, it's really brave when you can make the decision for yourself. Like, I'm trying to instill that even, like, at 11. Like, if you can have the conversation without your mom, like, that's a big deal, you know, and you're going to set yourself up for like a lot of success. But again, at 11, I'm not really, like, the other day we learned rotations with Sour Patch Kids. So like,
I love that.
Yeah, I was teaching them a 6-2. So each opposite, like, had like a color pairing, and that's how we learned. And I think they're gonna get.
Yeah.
We'll see.
I've done that with like ribbons.
Yes. Yeah. Candy is motivating because once they get it, they get to eat it. So like, that was cool. But
yeah.
Anyways, I really enjoyed this conversation. I think, you know, people just need to be methodical about how they communicate player to coach, coach to player. I mean, there's a lot of coaches, like we said, that are creating really bad experiences and they're being exposed to this trend, but there's also some coaches just trying to do their job, and players' frontal lobes aren't fully developed yet, and it's making it really hard to coach, basically. So
yeah, for sure. And I think this trend like brought a lot of things to light for players and coaches, like from a coaching perspective, like there's a lot of things to consider, right? And sometimes your old way of coaching may not be what the new generation needs or will respond to, and you have to pivot, right? And
Yeah.
again, I want to just validate any player's experience because again, whatever you experience is what you experience, even if it wasn't
100%
what the coach intended.
intended.
It's what you experience. And if you had that negative experience, I am sorry. I've been there. We've both been there. I know how much it sucks. But like you said, some coaches are just trying to do their job. And most coaches, I will say, because I know there's like the select few that should not be coaching and should be reported. But the majority of coaches do have your best interest at heart and are
Yeah.
just trying to do their job and are just trying to make you a better player and make your teams better, right?
Yeah.
You know, a lot of these You're So Funnies are like the extremes of like what players can experience or yeah, what players can experience, but there's a lot of stuff in between that is a little bit smaller. But again, it's just all the things that coaches do that are trying to make you a better player.
And I appreciated there were some that I saw that were like, I can't participate in the trend because my coach is great. Like,
Yeah.
I thought that was really like a sweet sentiment too, because it was so negative and there's people out there trying to make it positive because, what we do isn't for the faint of heart. And we genuinely do this because we love the game and we love watching women grow in this sport. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like I have a whole other draft of like a positive version, like as a coach, because like you also get those like good
Yep.
emails from parents of like you changed my daughter's life. You like this was the best season she's ever had. Like
Yeah.
those are what keep me going.
Same. I have a folder in my phone for texts from players and parents. Like whenever I have a bad day, I just go back and read them and I'm like, okay, this is why I'm doing it. This is why
Yes.
I'm doing it. So,
But yeah, that is our take on the You're So Funny trend. I know a lot of people have their own opinions on it, and everybody is entitled to their own opinion. This is just our experience, what we've seen, what we've gone through as coaches and players. So thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for tuning in. I apologize we weren't here last week. We were both very ill, so we're back. If you're going through it with the flu season, just keep hanging in there. I know it's going around really quickly and really fast. So stay healthy, please. That's my health PSA for the week. But yeah, thank you guys for listening, and we will talk to you guys next week.
see ya.